Okay, today we're doing the 2.5 notes. We're still solving equations, but you'll notice today we're talking about literal equations. Now, literal equations are equations that involve two or more variables. Okay, so now we're going to be seeing more than one variable. 2.1 to 2.4, I only had one variable that I was getting by itself. These equations, we're going to see two or more variables. Okay, so just to start, look at this situation here. It says you are ordering pizzas and sandwiches. You have a budget of $80. How many sandwiches can you buy if you buy 4 pizzas, 5 pizzas? Explain your answer. Okay, so just right away, look here. Okay, here's my menu. You walk up to this menu, and we want to know what you can order. Okay, so what if I buy 4 pizzas? That's our first one. If I buy 4 pizzas, well, I'm paying $10 per pizza, so that's $40. Okay, which means I have $40 left to spend. So if I want to buy sandwiches, if I want to buy a sandwich and it costs $5 each, I could buy up to 8 sandwiches to spend my $40. Okay, let's look at the second part. What if I have 5 pizzas? So what if my p-value is 5? Okay, so if I buy 5 pizzas, now I'm paying $50. So how many sandwiches would I be able to buy? I'd be able to buy 6, right? Because I'd have $30 left to spend. Okay, so what you'll notice here is as I buy more pizzas, right, or as my pizzas go up, the number of sandwiches I can buy goes down, okay, and vice versa. Basically, with literal equations, what happens is one variable affects the other. Okay, so when it comes to literal equations, here's our first one. This example represents our pizza and sandwich problem above. Okay, so above I was told that I can pay $10 for a pizza and $5 for a sandwich. So right away I know here that X is the number of pizzas and Y is the number of sandwiches. Okay. And then I'm asked this question down here. How many sandwiches can you buy if you buy 3 pizzas? What about 6 pizzas? When we're solving literal equations, we are first going to solve for a given variable. Now, the given variable is important. You need to find that. I'm being told to solve for y. Now, my trick to you is if you have a highlighter, I would highlight that variable immediately. If you don't have a highlighter, you can just circle it, okay? But it's so important for you to circle or highlight whatever variable you're being asked to solve for because we are going to try to get this variable y by itself. Okay? So now when I go to solve, draw my line. Remember, we're getting those good habits. Okay, now think about this. I'm trying to get y by itself. What do I need to move? Well, I need to move this 10x. Notice I included the x in that because I'm trying to just get y by itself, which means this x needs to go over to the other side. So I'm going to treat 10x like a package deal. 10x is positive, so I'm going to subtract 10x from both sides. Notice I take my x with me. So now these go away. I'm just left with 5y. Now on the other side, be careful. I am not able to subtract 80 minus 10 here because my 10 is an x. These are not like terms. So I'm just going to write 80 minus 10x. Just going to write it like that. I cannot simplify that anymore. Okay, let's circle our variable we're getting by itself again. We're getting the y by itself. So now I'm going to divide 5 to both sides. Notice on the other side I'm dividing everything by 5. Okay? Dividing everything by 5, not just the 80, not just the 10. So now to simplify this, you could either leave it 80 minus 10x over 5. You could leave it that way. Or we could actually simplify this because I can do 80 divided by 5 and I can do negative 10 divided by 5. Those will both give me a nice number. Okay, if they both give you a nice number, we can simplify that. 80 divided by 5 gives me 16. And then negative 10 divided by 5 gives me a negative 2. Okay? All right, so that's the first part, is solving for our equation. Now, it says use the rewritten equation to find when x equals 3 and when x equals 6, okay? So now I'm going to use my literal equation from above, okay? And I'm going to bring it down below. So I've got y equals 16 minus 2. Now pause. I'm being asked to solve for certain things. So I'm going to take my 3 and I'm going to plug it in for x. Same with the other side. I'm going to plug it in for x. Okay? And now these are two separate problems. We're just going to simplify both of these. Okay? So I have 16 minus 6 gives me 10. And then I have 16 minus 12 gives me 4. Okay? And now think about our word problem. What are these? We're talking about y. Y was talking about sandwiches. So this is 10 sandwiches. And this is 4 sandwiches. Okay? All right. Go ahead, try our next one. Okay, so after you solved this one, here's what we should have gotten. I was being told to solve for m, so I'm going to highlight the m, and that's what I'm trying to get by itself. So I moved the 5n first. I added it, taking the n with me. I did not combine these two because this had an n and that did. Then I divided the whole thing by 2. Now notice here, I left my answer like this with the fraction, because while I can do 4 divided by 2, I cannot do 5 divided by 2. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it like this. Then I plugged in -2 and 0. And so in order to solve this, we would get 4 minus 10 over 2, -6 over 2. So I'd get -3. And then over here, I would have gotten 4 plus 5 times 0, which gives me 0 over 2. 4 over 2 gives me 2. Okay, there's my answers. Okay. Now, here's a little note. It says you may have to divide by a variable in these problems. Keep in mind that we will assume the variable is not equal to 0 because division by 0 is considered undefined. Okay, so that's just a point. Remember, we cannot divide by 0. So if there's ever a variable in the denominator, for example, if I have, let's say, 4 divided by n, we're going to assume that n is not 0 because that would be undefined. Okay, so n can be any other number. All right, look at our next one. Oh my gosh. What do you notice? It's all variables. It's all variables now. Okay, now this one can be tricky, so pay attention. Feel free to pause, go back, rewatch. This can be a tricky problem because you'll notice I'm being asked to solve for x. Okay, I'm solving for x. Now, what do you notice about x? There's 2 of them. Okay, so we have 2 x's. Okay, and unlike numbers, I can't just add up my coefficients because I can't combine a and -b, right? So here's what we do. We are going to do reverse distributive property. Okay, we call this factoring. Okay, so reverse of distribution is factoring. Okay, so let's just write that word. We're going to factor out the x. Okay, and remember, factoring is opposite of distributing. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this x from both, and I'm going to suck it out. Okay, so I take the x out of both. Notice I don't have 2x, I have 1x. I took it from both of them. And so what do I have left? A minus b. Okay, equals c. And a had an x, but I took it from him, so it's just a. I have a bx. I took the x from it, so I just have the b. What you really did there was you really divided both terms by x. So my x's went away, and I had a minus b. Okay, so now my variable is still not by itself. Okay, I'm trying to get x by itself. I still have an a minus b attached. Now, how is my a minus b attached? Multiplication. A minus B is a group. They're together. A minus B is in parentheses. So what I need to do is divide both sides by A minus B. So x equals C over A minus B. And that, my friends, is your answer. All right, I want you to try the next one. Remember, stay organized. Take your time. We are solving for x right now. Okay, when we solved for x, you should have gotten this answer. Notice we subtracted the r first, then we divided both sides by p. Okay. All right, a formula. So with our formulas, it's just an equation that shows the relationship between different quantities, okay, different variables. Okay, so here's a list, okay, of our formulas, okay. We're going to refer to this. So you might want to put a star here, maybe put a little tab in your notebook, because you might need to refer to this chart as we go and as you do your homework, okay, because we're going to have to pull from these formulas. All right, so here's our first one. It says rewriting the geometric formula, okay? So here I'm going to give you a statement. It says, what is the radius of a circle with circumference 64 feet? And then I just give you a little instruction that says round to the nearest tenth and use 3.14 for pi. When I give you this, notice I'm not giving you an equation, okay? There's no equation listed, okay? So what you're going to have to do is you're going to need to figure out which formula we're using. So I'm asking, what is the radius of the circle with a circumference? Circumference is one of my formulas. Go back to our page over here. Notice circumference is one of the pieces given to me, okay? So we're going to use that formula, all right? So we're going to use the formula C equals 2 pi r. Okay, so now we're having to know what formula to pull. So we're pulling the circumference formula. Okay, now I'm being asked, what is the radius? Okay, so what is the radius? Underline that. That right there is what I am solving for. Okay, so I am solving for r. Okay, so I got my formula from here, told me the circumference, and I'm told I'm solving for a radius. Okay, so now let's simplify this. So my 2 and my pi are all attached to r by multiplication. So I'm going to get rid of them by dividing. And whatever I do to one side of my mirror line, I have to do the other side. So now I'm left with r equals c over 2 pi. Great, that's my first part. That's my literal equation. Okay. Now let's use that literal equation to plug in a piece of information that I know. What do I know? They give me two things, two numbers. They tell me 64 feet is my circumference. Okay, so this is C. And they tell me to use 3.14 for pi. Okay, so if I come over here, here's my formula. My C is 64. I still have my 2 for my formula. And I'm told to use 3.14 for pi. Okay? I simplify all that, and you would get 10.185, but it says round to the nearest tenth. So let's make that 10.2. What are my units? Notice up here I'm giving you circumference in feet, which means this will be feet. Okay? Let's try this next one here. It says, what is the height of a triangle that has an area of 24 inches squared and a base with a length of 8 inches? So first step, okay, if you want to think of it this way. Step number 1 is find your formula. Okay, so what am I giving you here? Well, I see height and then I see area. Okay, area I know is a formula. So let's go back over here. What is my area? Oh, look, I have three areas. Which area do I want? Oh, a triangle has an area of 24, which means I would like to use that formula, area of a triangle. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here. Finding our formula is area equals 1/2 base times height. Okay, now what am I being asked to find? So step 2 is what variable am I solving for? Okay, what variable am I solving for? Remember, that comes from the beginning. What is the height? Boom, there it is. We're solving for h. Okay, we are solving for h. All right, so now let's just solve for h. So here we go. Draw my line down. Okay. I'm going to get rid of my fraction first. So if we remember, to get rid of a fraction, we multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. That goes away. I'm left with 2a equals, and then on the other side I have bh. Okay, now my h is not by itself yet. Okay, so I still need to solve. I need to divide both sides by b. So h equals 2a divided by b. There's my literal equation. Okay, so that was step 3. We were solving. Okay. Now, last, we're going to plug in our given information. Okay. So, I'm telling you that it has an area of 24 inches squared. And let me get a new color. It has a base with a length of 8 inches. Okay, so in other words, B is going to be 8. And my area is going to be 24. So let's go plug those in. Okay, so using my literal equation, I have 2 times A, which I know is 24, over B, which I now know is 8. Equals my height. Okay, so now let's solve. Okay, so I have 2 times 24 gives me 48. Divided by 8 gives me 6. Okay, so 6. Now think about units. Okay, what units are this in? Inches squared. So this is 6 inches because we're talking about a height. Okay, 6 inches. All right, last problem here. Okay, rewriting a formula. Okay, so the monarch butterfly is the only butterfly that migrates annually north and south. The distance that a particular group of monarchs travels is shown. It takes a typical butterfly about 120 days to travel one way. What is the average rate at which a butterfly travels in miles per day? Round the nearest mile. Okay. Just like the previous word problems, let's look for my question first, because the question holds a lot of information to get us started. Okay, so what is the average rate at which a butterfly travels in miles per day? Do we see any form of unit or things that I'm going to be measuring to find? Well, I see average rate. Okay, so I have an average rate. What is the average rate at which it travels? So let's go to my formula sheet. Let's see if we can find average rate anywhere. Oh, anyone see anything close here? I don't see one that's for average rate, but if you notice over on this side, I see an R equals rate here. Okay, so that's going to tell me this formula might be helpful. Okay, distance equals rate times time. Okay, if I'm asking you for an average rate, I'm asking you to use our distance formula. Okay, so let me use lowercase d. D equals R times T. Now, I'm asking you, what is the average rate? Okay, so the rate is what I'm solving for. Okay, I'm solving for R. Let's get R by itself. Okay, so in other words, I'm going to divide both sides by t. So r equals distance over time. Okay. Okay, now that we have our little equation, let's actually solve this with the numbers it gives me. Okay, so it says a monarch butterfly, blah, blah, blah. That's really cool. So the distance that a particular group of monarchs is shown. Here it is. It's shown. So what does this image show me? It shows me this number right here, which is how far they travel because it's measuring in miles. Okay, so I know D equals 1,700. Okay, let's keep going. It says it takes a typical butterfly about 120 days to travel one way. So 120 days, well, that sure sounds like time. Okay, so I have 120 days. Okay, so now let's just go plug this into our formula. My distance was 1,700. My time was 120, so I divide these two. And I'm going to get 14.166, I think. So let's change that. We'll make that, we'll round it, 14 miles each day. That's its rate. Okay? And there you have it.